So last time I was in Helsinki, I actually made a joke about who invented the sauna, the Swedes or the Finns. That did not end well. So I'm not going to do that today. It will be a big mess. So thank you all for actually joining this session today. Really excited to have you here and also to be here at this Fujitsu event. As you all know, we have a great relationship with Fujitsu, and it actually got rolled out globally a few weeks ago. So I'm really excited to talk to you about Nutanix and what we do with Fujitsu specifically. So just a quick show of hands. Who knows Nutanix? Who has ever heard of Nutanix? Okay, that's quite a few actually. And if you think about Nutanix, what's the first thing that actually pops into your mind? Don't be shy. Probably HCI, right? Hyperconverged infrastructure. Yeah, I thought so. So we're going to be spending some time on HCI today, but actually we're going to spend some time on what's beyond HCI, right? What can you do with it? So quick introduction of myself. My name is Sunil Dutt, and I've been with Nutanix now for about 4 years. And I take care of our routes to market strategy in Northern Europe, Eastern Europe, Russia, and the Russian Commonwealth countries. So just to give you a little bit of an overview of Nutanix. So we call ourselves the enterprise cloud company and not the hyperconverged infrastructure company. And that has a very specific reason. It has to do with our mission statement. So we are in the business of making data centers invisible and also making clouds invisible with a few reasons. One, so we can recalibrate IT departments and they can focus on what really matters, which are your applications, and services. So if you look at the journey that we've been in, we were founded actually 10 years ago. So I actually came back from the US yesterday where we had our huge .next event, 6,500 attendees, and we celebrated our 10-year anniversary. So that's been, we've been around for quite some time. You might not expect that. We have about 4,500 employees. We are really growing towards 5,000, 5,500 this calendar year, so growing really rapidly. More than 10,000 customers around the globe. And what's more important to me is that customers really like us. You're probably familiar with the Net Promoter Score that all the vendors use, from a -100 to a +100. And we've been scoring for 5 years consecutively plus 90%, which is pretty impressive. And our customers are also very satisfied with the solution. So don't take my word for it. I mean, we've been on quite a journey, and if you look at the independent analysts, they all agree that Nutanix in the space of hyperconvergence and enterprise cloud is a market leader, but also one of the companies that has the clearest vision and a strong ability to execute. But the question is actually, why should you all care about all this American vendor mumbo jumbo, right? So there's actually a way that I want to explain this to you, and it kind of also has to do with the Japanese look and feel of Fujitsu. And the way I'm going to explain this to you, and bear with me on this one, you know, you'll get it at the end, is actually through a little story that I came across in the plane. So after the Industrial Revolution, quite some time ago, there was an increased need to be able to move from point A to point B faster through public transport. And so we experimented with that. And this is something that actually happened in New York. In 1966, we took a train, a locomotive, and we took a jet engine and we bolted on top of the train. And we said, hey, let's see what happens. So, you know, we got some results. We got about 295 kilometers an hour. And you might say, hey, that's actually great. But if you think about it, really think about it, it doesn't make sense, right? Because if you look at that jet engine and what it was purposely built for, it was built to actually propel this plane right here, right? With very different results from what you will get on a train. And this is something that we as an industry have been doing for a very, very long time. Because every time we want to make something better, we take old technology, bolt something on top of it to make it faster. And there's a very apparent reason for that, because there's a whole industry that has been built on maintaining the status quo, because change is scary and change is very costly. So if you look at this right here and apply what this gentleman said right here, and he was a quite intelligent gentleman, that you shouldn't be fixing problems that you encounter today with the techniques and the technologies that created the problem in the first place, right? Makes sense. So here I come to the whole Japanese part, because the Japanese, as we all know, are very, very great engineers. And basically, they took actually the concept and they reimagined what they should be doing to actually achieve better results. So if you look at this picture here, of course, you will see that the shape of the train has changed, right? So you have less wind lag. But fundamentally, to achieve those great results, they changed the infrastructure because it was actually the friction from the rails that was holding the train back. So you can imagine that once the Japanese actually encountered public transport that could get them from point A to point B with these types of speeds, their expectation of public transport completely changed. It was reset. So we actually had a similar encounter in our little world of IT, and it had all to do with this little thingy right here, the public cloud. The public cloud has completely created a paradigm shift. It has changed the way that we as consumers of IT, what expectations we have of our IT department. So what we did at Nutanix, we actually surveyed our customers together with IDC, and we tried to figure out what are those core components, those core characteristics, if I may call them like that people love about public cloud. And I'll show them to you. So the first one is cloud. It deploys rapidly, bless you. It deploys really rapidly. What I mean with that is I take my credit card, I go to Amazon.com, I swipe my credit card virtually, I click twice, and boom, I have infrastructure up and running and spinning and ready to provision my applications. Very different from what we are traditionally used to in a traditional IT environment where we have to buy components and tie them all together with spit and duct tape, and it takes a few weeks before you actually have infrastructure running up and before you can actually deploy an application. The second thing is the enormous simplicity. When I go to an Amazon.com or to an Azure, I don't have to follow a very specific course to understand how I do the basic management of the environment. It's really intuitive. It really has a lot of artificial intelligence in there. It really guides me through the process. And another important part is the way that you consume it. And notice how it says consumption, right? It doesn't say buying. And that is what you have with cloud, because you consume it the moment that you need it. And if you don't need it anymore, you just turn it off, right? No waste there. And lastly, and as even as important, public cloud is always innovative, right? You are assured to have the last and the best version of any application that you're using. To put that into perspective, do we have anybody in the room that uses Gmail as an email client? Anybody, sir? What version are you using? Exactly. Exactly. And maybe even the better answer would be you don't care, right? Because that's the great thing about public cloud. You don't care anymore. You know one thing for sure. You always have the latest and greatest of what you're consuming. It'd be Gmail, Salesforce, whatever it would be. So if we took those if we take all those fantastic elements of public cloud and we talk to our customers once they actually got acquainted with that, this was basically what every customer was thinking about. Oh, we need to go to the cloud. It's almost like you need to pick up something and you need to bring it physically to another location, and then all of a sudden it becomes cloud. And what I'm here to tell you today is that you don't have to go to the cloud. You can actually do cloud yourself. You can introduce all those great characteristics that we all love about public cloud, and you can introduce that in the safety and the privacy of your own private cloud. And the way that you do that is through this little thing right here. It's something that we call the enterprise cloud. And the enterprise cloud is not a physical location, but it is a methodology. So how do you build your enterprise cloud? So basically, you take 4 steps. The first step is you need to make sure that your private cloud starts to react and act as a public cloud, right? So you introduce all those lovely characteristics in your private cloud. So if you look at the evolution of enterprise infrastructure, and some of you have been here long enough to know that in the 90s, we had a simple server with some storage in a server room. And all of a sudden today, we have this huge complex beast with fiber channel optics, switches, storage controllers, SANs, servers, whatever. And in between, something happened. Does anybody know what happened in between that actually caused this complexity? 2 letters it starts with. It starts with VM. Exactly. So we introduced x86 virtualization, and which was a brilliant idea, by the way. You know, VMware really revolutionized the IT industry with that. But they did create a very complex environment. And the reason why that happened was because of this, because this is actually a snippet of version 1.0 of VMware Virtual Center. And if you want to use all those cool technologies that come with virtualization, there was one little catch, and that is you need to have a shared storage area network. You need to have a SAN infrastructure. And that's basically when, you know, the complexity all started, and every data center basically started to look like this. A little bit exaggerated, but I can tell you that guy right there, he is not happy, right? But basically, this is the infrastructure that we came up with. And as applications grew bigger and expectations of users became larger, the more complex the environment became. And this is basically how we also were managing those environments, right? We would have silos. We would have a storage manager, a virtualization manager, an application manager, a network manager, and compute manager, and I can go on and on. So there are a few things that are not of this time anymore if you look at this model. First one is the way that you buy it. Remember that cloud is a consumption model. Here we are buying for 3 to 5 years upfront, and you're looking in your little crystal ball and you're thinking, oh, you know what, I'll over-provision because I don't want to take the risk of, you know, not having enough capacity after 5 years. So you do, let's just add 20%. And you're afraid that it will break down, so let's buy it twice. And I've been talking to a few of the customers that are in the room right now, and I've been asking, you know, what's on top of your agenda right now? And most of the time people say, yeah, innovation. And I'm having a hard time comprehending how buying in bulk for 3 to 5 years up front drives innovation. Because we all know how, for instance, Intel has that tick-tock principle and how they release CPU chipsets. You are missing that innovation for your whole journey, right? You're locked in with the technology that is available today. Another downside is the deployment. Remember, cloud is just clickety-clack and it's boom, up and running. This you need to buy, you need to implement, you need to tie it all together. Not cloud-like. And talking about the management, different management panes, different consoles, different disciplines within your company. And then you need to scale it. What if you are an organization that acquires a different company and you need to merge those 2 IT departments? How do you do that? You need to redesign everything from the ground up. And then, you know, talk about support. And I think everybody is acquainted with the support experience that you get from vendors. Let's say this might be a VDI environment and your user gives you a call and says, hey, my desktop is slow. Where do you go look for it? Right? And then you have vendors that are pointing at each other. So there are many reasons to think of why this is actually not of this time anymore and why this architecture is stopping you from creating cloud-like infrastructure in your own private data center. So how do you fix this, right? And which brings me to this gentleman right here, because he actually had the exact same problem, right? He asked people, how do you want me to make sure that you get from point A to B faster? And people said, you know, give me faster horses, put them on steroids, right? So again, we are thinking about taking all technology and trying to make that faster, while we actually need to redesign the whole principle. And then he invented the car, of course. So fortunately for us at Nutanix, we were not the first ones that were actually faced with this problem, because we all know this little company right here, right? Google. And they were actually, Google was on a journey of becoming the largest cloud software provider in the world. And it kind of succeeded, but they were also hindered in their journey because of the enormous complexity in their data centers. And they fixed that. They fixed that with something that they call, the Google file system. And what you might notice here, you know, apart from the lovely cables and the pristine floor, but what you notice here is there's a lot of standardization going on. And the most important part is, and I just actually showed you already, there is no SAN infrastructure. So what Google actually did with the Google file system, they had a few fundamental design goals. The first one was they wanted to create something that was purposely built to break, which is a very different principle from what we are all used to, because we buy everything twice because we're afraid that it will break. Basically, this is a whole room with lots of servers, and every time one server fails, somebody just drives around with a golf cart, takes out the broken server, puts another one in, and the software recognizes the resources that are being provisioned, assimilates it, distributes it amongst the collective, and you're always online. Very easy. So basically what they did, they took all the dependencies and technologies that we usually embed in hardware, they took it out, and they put it in a software layer, and they virtualized storage, and they virtualized networking. Very, very intelligent. They were not the only ones, by the way, because our friends of Facebook had the exact same scalability challenge. Same architecture principle, no SAN, they named it Haystack. And we just had our friend of Microsoft on stage right here, and we're talking about Azure. Exact same principle, no SAN infrastructure, just a different name, it's called blobs. So if you would look at this picture right here, and this is what we invented in 2009, it becomes very recognizable, right? That is when we started our journey building web scale architecture. We basically, and let's not make it more difficult than it has to be, we took the technologies that the huge data centers use and we commercialized that. We made it available for any enterprise in the market space. It's as easy as that. So that was the birthplace of hyperconverged infrastructure with the exact same design principles as all those big, large data centers. So we took this very complex stack and we brought it back to something very simple. And it's right-sized for the application that you are using. And if you need more capacity, you just add another node. The software sees the resources being offered, it redistributes, and boom, you're always online. Really, really, really simple. So what happens when you make everything simple and everything software-defined? Well, actually, and I have this little thing right here, and we actually use this every day, software-defined phone. What happens if you need to upgrade your applications? You hit update all, right? Well, that's the same way that you will now update a whole data center without any downtime. Do we have any data center admins in the room, by any chance? So how happy are you when you're invited to do a change weekend? I can imagine, it's painful, right? And long hours, you need to give up your weekends. And basically, our customers don't have to do that anymore. They just upgrade their data center from a distance through an HTML portal, just press update all, and it just starts running. And this this makes me really happy when I see this. These are actually customers that are tweeting about that experience. This was actually on a Sunday, where one of our customers deployed a 15-node cluster just in a matter of minutes instead of hours and days. You know, very different experience. And I was at our .next event in the USA last week, and I actually came across customers that were pulling me and asking me, I need a picture with your CEO because I need to tell him thank you for improving my personal life because my wife likes me again because I'm home in the weekends, right? And then you get these tweets. So it's really good to see, that it's actually, technology is great, and I saw it in the keynote as well of Fujitsu, that it's also the human aspect, right, that we tend to forget. You are improving people's lives, which is also very important. So basically my message would be, keep it simple, right? Remove all the complexity, introduce those lovely cloud-like characteristics in the privacy of your own data center. And that's the moment where you can start your journey towards the enterprise cloud. So hyperconverged infrastructure is not a means to an end. It is the beginning of something that you will create in the long run. So let's talk about what you're going to be creating in the long run. So you now have public cloud capabilities in your private cloud. The next step, and that's something that everybody is talking about, is multi-cloud, right? Great. So when we talk about multi-cloud, there are a few things that you need to take in account. One, you don't have a single cloud anymore, right? We have a public cloud, very scalable, elastic, cloud-native applications that you click on tiles and get provisioned automatically. Then you have private cloud. It's very near us. We tend to keep our mission-critical applications there because it's safe, it's compliant, et cetera, et cetera. And then you have the distributed cloud, right? The IoT, the edge computing that is now all taking place. So you have really different types of clouds, and it presents a few challenges because all of these clouds are built out of different technology stacks. So how do you move an application from a public cloud to a private cloud and backwards, right? Because it doesn't have the same application fabric. Second one is management. Remember the management silos and the disciplines that we had in the old situation? You are just replacing them with new names, new labels, because you will have an Amazon manager and somebody who's managing your private cloud and somebody who's managing your distributed cloud. And the consumption models are also very inconsistent, because here you are consuming, in the middle with private cloud you are buying in bulk, and in the last, you're just putting something in place the moment it becomes relevant. Right? The moment a retail chain opens a store, they put in a little mini data center on the edge. So those are the challenges that you'll be faced with once you go towards a multi-cloud strategy. So how do you fix that? So within Nutanix, we are fixing that by something that we call the Enterprise Cloud Operating System. So what is an operating system? Simply said, 2 words. So an operating system is nothing else than user experience. And what do I mean by that? So if I am using a Acer laptop today, and of course tomorrow I will migrate to a Fujitsu laptop, then I don't have to go on a course to understand how a Fujitsu laptop works. The operating system, in this case Windows, will interpret all the resources and will present it to me in one uniform singular method. That's the job of an operating system. Not to confuse the user with all the complexity that's behind the screen. So in that same way, our operating system interprets all the technologies that are in all those different clouds, but make sure that we present it to the user in one singular way. So you don't have to deal with all that complexity, and you have the freedom to choose any cloud. So instead of managing all those multiple dashboards and figuring out how to create that app portability, you can just get rid of that. And you can just bring it back to something really simple, really intuitive, that will tell you exactly AI-driven how to manage it, what to do, and how to move your workload around. So you now have public cloud capacity in your private cloud. You now have a safe way to go around and decide on your multi-cloud strategy. So all of a sudden you have this whole bunch of choices that you can make, which can be confusing at some time. So you want to make intelligent choices, right, based on metrics and statistics. So we have introduced a solution that will also help you with that. Because as a customer, the only question that you should be asking yourself is, do I consume, rent, or buy? Basically, that's your business case. And some of you might be thinking, that's a great story, Sunil, but why don't we just go all into public cloud? Well, there's actually a very apparent reason for it, because now that we've been consuming public cloud for some time, we all found that public cloud is not as cheap as we all thought it would be. And there are multiple studies, and you have one on the right here from IDC, that actually show that public cloud is really powerful if you have elastic and unpredictable workloads where you need to be able to scale up and down really fast. But if you have predictable workloads like databases or a VDI environment, it makes more sense to put it in a private cloud. So it's more cost effective. But of course, our customers want the best of both worlds, right? So what we want to create is a situation where with the enterprise cloud platform, you can actually choose whether you rent, consume, or own your own gear, and be able to move your workloads from one to the other the moment that it makes sense for you from a cost perspective and from a performance perspective. And seamless, full control, and fully compliant, because it's all managed by that single enterprise cloud platform. So the way that we do that is by a simple solution that is called Beam. And what Beam basically does is, I think most of you use Expedia or Booking.com when you're trying to book a trip, right? So basically what you do, you punch in the metrics. I have an application. I need to run it for this amount of time with these performance parameters. Dear Beam, can you tell me which cloud would be the most cost effective and the most compliant? Would that be any public cloud, or would that be my own private cloud? And Beam will actually give you that information based on the metrics that you punch in. The second thing is Beam will also monitor who within your companies are consuming cloud. And as an IT department, you could actually charge back that cost to those individuals that are actually using that, right? So that IT doesn't become that singular cost center anymore. And another important component of Beam is that it will tell you that if you are trying to take an application and move it to a public cloud, if it makes sense from a compliance perspective, right? If you're not trying to do something that is not supported by local regulatory compliance. So all of a sudden, you have a whole bunch of really rich analytics based on cost and statistics that you can use to make intelligent choices on where you will host and provision your applications. And remember, it is still an operating system. That means that all that information is already available, so you just have to flip the switch and you will get all that information just out of the box. So now you can make intelligent choices. Great. So if you look at these 3 steps, these are very much infrastructure oriented. And if you remember the mission statement that I told you before, that we actually want to make this all invisible and make sure that your IT departments can focus on applications and services, that is the next step. So we're moving from infrastructure-centric to what actually matters, application-centric. Because honestly, and you know, if you want to prove me wrong, please do, but I don't believe that anybody ever made any money off of infrastructure, right? It's the application that is driving your business, not the infrastructure. So that's why we are very much all oriented around removing the attention and recalibrating IT to focus more on the application. So how do we do that? So remember public cloud, introducing public cloud capabilities. If you go to any public cloud provider, be Amazon, Azure, or Google, and you would want to consume an application, basically this is what you would see. You would get an app store, and you would just click a tile. It will provision the application, and you don't need it anymore. You will click it away, and boom, it's gone. Really simple. So that same matter of simplicity, we wanted to introduce within your private cloud as well. So how do we do that? So with a solution called Calm, your IT department can now focus on creating application blueprints. Basically describe in a blueprint the birth of an application, the whole sequence of the life cycle, how you manage it, and provision that based on roles or on departments from a simple marketplace, regardless of where that application is being warehoused, whether it be on premises in your private cloud or it be any public cloud environment. And the moment that you do that, basically this is what you get. Something that looks really similar to the experience that you have in the public cloud. And if I would be an employee at a company, and because I'm a sales guy, maybe I will have right to Salesforce or any other application, I would just click it. It will be provisioned automatically. I don't need to use it anymore, and it's gone again. The exact same look and feel that you would get from a public cloud, you would have in the privacy of your private cloud. So these are basically the 4 steps that you need to take if you're on your journey towards building that enterprise cloud experience, right? So don't get confused by the fact that hyperconvergence is just something that you do and it ends there. No, it's something that you start with, and you can create a much bigger experience for your company with a much greater value if you implement the enterprise cloud strategy together with Nutanix and Fujitsu. So before I close off, there are a few things that I would want you to remember before you leave this room. So the first thing is, if you're on your journey towards digital transformation and cloud adoption, make sure that you standardize operations across public and private cloud. Make it really easy for yourself. Eliminate disciplines and silos. The second thing would be, if you are considering public cloud, make sure that you have the right analytics and make sure that it's an extension of your private cloud. And if you are really going to make that choice and you have those analytics, make sure that you make a business case that is not only based on cost, but also on compliance and governance, right? So you can put it all together and make some conscious decisions. And lastly, provision the applications through a marketplace. If you really want to be a cloud-enabled, cloud-first company, make sure that you introduce those same characteristics in your private cloud. And what it brings you eventually is the freedom of choice. That's what it's all about. The freedom to choose any cloud for any application based on whatever wishes you have. So that is my presentation for today. I thank you very much. My contact details are noted below. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me directly. And I think if you have any questions now, you can even ask them if you like to.
Thank you, Sunil. Really good, clear presentation. And any questions do you have? So at least I have one here. Like you said, Fujitsu can help our customers with the cloud journey and together with our good partners. And the way I see the cloud transformation or application modernization is that maybe so far most of the customers they didn't have a kind of a clear business case, or there was maybe they were considering too much risks or something. So it's easier to do nothing. So how do you see this situation globally, and is Finland any different in this sense? Do you see any movement on the market?
No, actually, to be quite honest, Finland is actually quite advanced in that perspective compared to other countries in Europe. The thing that you need to take in consideration is not doing anything at all is the worst thing that you can do, because your competitors, they are starting in this market as with a cloud-first strategy, right? And we've seen that all across the board. We've seen blockbusters being caught up by Netflix. We've seen so many companies that were large, dominant logos that within a year and a half, just disappeared off the face of the earth because there was this new little innovative company that had a different strategy and just went with it, right? So I don't believe that you can actually afford it to not consider any changes in your organization.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other questions?
Does it make sense, by the way? Good.
Maybe at least one, please. Okay, there you are.
Yeah, how do you manage especially when you start moving around between private and public cloud, and so how do you manage the risk of licensing? Because those can be tied to PVUs or cores and something, and when you start moving things around, it can be very easy and very nice, and then all of a sudden you realize that in an audit, you are ultimately in very, very dangerous situation.
Yeah, fair point. Exactly. That's a very good question. Thank you for asking that, because that's actually a key component that I forgot to mention during the Beam part. But yes, Beam will actually tell you the implications if you would actually take a workload and move it to another location. It will give you the implication in terms of risk and compliance, in terms of additional costs for licensing, or maybe even your saving on licensing. But it will also tell you if you will have a different user experience in terms of performance. So all those parameters that are important for you to make a conscious decision, the application will tell you. And sometimes the public cloud may be, or the other way around, may be the cheaper option. But if you take into account the licensing part, then all of a sudden the business case might change. Yeah. So, but you will get all those analytics to make those decisions. Yeah. Does that answer your question? Thank you. Thank you for the question. Any other questions? So I'll be on a plane right after this session, so I won't be walking around for any. So if you have any right now, you can just shoot away if you want to. If not, then I'll thank you very much for attending this session, and hopefully we'll meet each other some next time in Helsinki. Kiitos.
Kiitos. Thank you, Sunil.